Yo, 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 what's up YouTube? Hydra VGC's back temporarily from my break. And obviously I'm gonna have to disappear again soon, but while I'm here with the new announcement of, Pokemon Day, which was a few days ago, there was a very interesting Pokemon that some people love and hate. Me personally, I'm a huge fan of it, and it's this guy right here, Walking Wake. Now, if you don't know about Walking Wake at first glance, it's a water dragon type Pokemon with photosynthesis. And well, you may ask, what's so special about this Pokemon? You know, it's just, freaking water dragon ugly looking thing or whatever. But it's because of this move right here called Hydro Steam. And the existence of this move is what gives this Pokemon complete, viability in multiple kinds of team styles, if that makes sense. And this style of team is kind of like very similar to that, in that you run both, I guess, the best of both worlds, which is what this guy's all about. And for y'all that don't know what Hydro Steam does, during sunny day you get a 1.5 times power, and it's not weakened by the sun. So that's actually quite big, because you're talking about having water coverage while you're in a sunny day team, which is actually kind of stupid. So you get both water coverage for like rock types or anything, and this guy also gets some really interesting moves such as Flamethrower, Hurricane, Draco, and even like Snarl, and I guess it gets Breaking Swipe too and all that. It can fulfill support and offensive roles at the same time, so that's one thing to note about this guy. And with this style of team, I'll explain why I chose Assault Vest and why these EVs are the way they are. Don't just think it's a jumbled mess. No, I calculate all this stuff. It's very peculiar, if that makes sense, for like certain kind of matchups. But this guy does have one glaring weakness, and that's a Pokemon called Iron Bundle, which we have seen a lot if you play VGC. It has access. Well, ignore that. Internet went out. If you hear a thunderstorm right now, it's actually raining at the moment, which coincidentally, look at that, water type Pokemon showcase in the rain. Totally not planned, but yeah, I'll get right to it. So the way this team plays is kind of like I based it mostly around Walking Wake and having kind of like viability in both sides of sunny day and rainy day or whatever. My bad, rain dance, but Okay, so Hydro Steam still gets boosted by the rain, still gets boosted by the sun, but when you're under the sun you get the photosynthesis boost, which is what is very powerful. But while you're in the rain you get access to Hurricane. If you don't know what Hurricane does, you get a 30% chance to confuse a target and it cannot miss in rain. But one thing to note is that this move is around 50% accuracy under sunny days, so this team is a little bit more difficult to use. It's not beginner friendly, I'll tell you that much, because the way it plays, you're gonna have to know your matchups, and you're gonna have to know when to click stuff and activate this and all that stuff. But you do get rewarded, because this team does have answers to pretty much any kind of team archetype in the current metagame of Season 2 and possibly Regulation C. And if you don't know about Regulation C, it's actually Series 3. It got changed, I believe, because of I don't know, I guess they're going with the whole school theme, so I mean, it's whatever. I still call it Series 3. So, and Series 3 will get the Ruin Pokemon. And if you want my personal take on it, the metagame might still be somewhat similar. Dondozo for sure will probably drop down a bit, just because of the Sword of Ruin Pokemon does actually carry Haze on it. And it does have access to Ice Spinner as well, so it could actually damage a lot of the terrain-based teams. So it's one thing to note that the Paradox Pokemon are actually still a lot faster than the Ruin Pokemon. The Ruin Pokemon don't really have any like boosting items other than like their ability, which is a really good ability, don't get me wrong. Like, you will see them, mainly Chiyu and Sword of Ruin. The other two are a little bit more defensive, but don't be surprised if you don't come across them. They're still threats, but they are also all dark types, and Fluttermane at the moment is probably one of the strongest fairy type attackers, so the existence of Fluttermane surely will curb that. And we don't really know when we will get access to use Walking Wake. This team is just kind of like a future-proof concept, if that makes sense. Like, just give anyone an idea of like how I personally would run this. Obviously could change in the future. I plan on using the walking wake, but I might not go for like the weather kind of like concept. I might just splash him in and use him as a support or something. It just depends, but I'll get right to it. So Klefki is kind of like your defensive pivot, defensive tool and all that stuff. Like you get access to rain dance if you go for like the defensive play against like your opponent. For example, if it's like a really frail kind of tailwind fast kind of team, that's when you would want something like Klefki, because you get a huge advantage with access to reflect and light screen. Under light clay you get that for 8 turns, and you also get access to prankster rain dance, so your rain dance will definitely be going off a majority of the time, and sometimes you might not even need it, and that's why I kind of opted to go for more slower kind of weathers. And yeah, that's a huge thunderstorm. Yeah, sorry about that, but it makes the video sound kind of cool anyways. Obviously here, as I was saying, Rain Dance is a very good defensive tool because this team does have about 2 steel types on it, so it will help curb that fire weakness as a whole just because of it. And obviously Dazzling Gleam, you get to target 2 opponents at the same time. And okay, so a lot of people could argue you could run foul play and stuff, but the reason why you would run a double targeting move on a support Pokemon is just figuratively speaking, you go up against 2 Pokemon, one of them has Focus Sash, you know, attack it. The other one's still at full HP, it drops down to its Focus Sash because you wasted your big ol' attack with your offensive threat. You don't want to really waste another, you know, turn trying to get rid of that Focus Sash user, potentially taking even more damage for like no reason. Realistically, you would want your support to kind of take it out just so you don't lose momentum and still maintain the advantage. And you know, that's kind of why you would run Dazzling Gleam on this guy, and it's just a basic spread. I'm not gonna go too in depth with this. It's just a personal preference. I like to outspeed other Klefkis. It's not like it's a common Pokemon, but it's not that uncommon either. And this is just to keep like kind of like an even amount. If you don't know, whenever your stats double, it usually tends to round down if you're like an odd kind of number, you know. So even you get more value out of it, so that's why it's kind of like I kind of go for this kind of spread. And oh, forgot to make him shiny, but yeah, I'll go back to the EVs on a walking wake. I really can't explain too much else other than like I went for Terra type water just for just to increase the power of Hydro Steam, since that's really what you're going to be clicking the most. And Assault Vest, okay, so specifically I went for Assault Vest just because I don't want to completely get into like a prediction war, you know, trying to predict my way out of Iron Bundle. I would prefer to have the bulk to at least kind of like check Iron Bundle to some extent, because Assault Vest, you still don't live Freeze Dry, even with the spread. But the spread, I kind of made it to help under Light Screen. If you go for Light Screen, you choose not to use your Terra typing with Assault Vest, you should get like 2-hit KO'd by Iron Bundle using Freeze Dry, which is a 4 times effective move. So that's definitely one thing to, you know, keep in mind. And if you go for Terra type water, you actually do live the Freeze Dry with Assault Vest, so it's also very, very good because this Pokemon, like I said, it's a very bulky kind of Pokemon. So yeah, that's kind of like the explanation on that, and I'll go over like some of the more team synergy in a second. I'll try to keep this video short. I don't want it to be too long because I won't really be able to even get any showcase games until I decide to you know, do some like personal testing with like friends or something. But and I plan on getting like a captured card also, just to help improve the quality of my videos and all that. So yeah, obviously Klefki, I just explained Klefki, and I'll go a little bit over, you know, Armont here, aka, you know, Mecha Volcarona. So Sludge Wave, you have Sludge Wave here just to kind of like do as much damage as possible, AoE double targeting damage, and you have about 4 Pokemon on here that you can actually hit that with. So you can lead Ironmod, Klefki, and spam Sludge Wave because Klefki is a steel type, so it's immune to the Sludge Wave. Gardevoir over here has access to telepathy, which, if you don't know what it does, it protects you against your you know, your allies' moves, you know. So you can freely click Sludge Wave while having Gardevoir out. Same with Caesar. Caesar is a steel type, so you can do the same. So that's you have pretty good options with this, and obviously overheat kind of like to help with the offensive mode that you'll probably be going. So if you don't know what Murkrow does already, Murkrow has access to Haze. Haze kind of like negates any like drops. You have Draco Meteor here, so you get a drop. You have Overheat here, so you get a drop. So Murkrow can kind of help supplement that, so Haze isn't a completely dead move. And at the moment right now, you know, Haze can still help against Dondozo matchups and set up heavy kind of like team strategies. And yeah, it's a really good move. On top of that, you know, Foul Play. Sunny Day here, which I was just explaining, Murkrow will probably be your more offensive kind of style. You know, you click Sunny Day and try and do as much damage as possible while under Tailwind, and, you know, dropping down any like damage reduction with Haze. And Terra type Ghost, just for you don't run Protect on Murkrow, and sometimes if you lead Murkrow and you want the Sunny Day or Tailwind to go off 100%, that's what the Terra type Ghost is for. Just to kind of prevent that fake out from going through. And yeah. And Hurricane, so the flexibility that comes with using Iron Moth on this team is it's a threat under Sunny Day and it's a threat under Rain Dance. You can spam your Hurricanes with Terra type Flying coming from like 140, you know, special attack. It's going to do a lot of damage. And it's also pretty fast too. It's in the 110 speed tier. And if you ask why I chose to go more bulky on you know, Dinocune here, it's because of like 109 speed tier. It's good, but like 110 speed tier is actually kind of like, there's a few notable threats that go in the 110 speed tier. So me personally, I feel like it's not really worth running that investment on this team, like specifically, just because you're gonna get outsped, you're gonna take the damage. But like me personally, the way I see it is, if I'm gonna take damage, I might as well make sure that I can sponge that damage as effectively as possible, and that's why I went for this kind of style over here. So, you know, Iron Moth would kind of serve as your speedy attacker, which, I mean, this team does have a lot of speed control. Like, you have, if you play it right, you'll have control over the entire matchup in terms of like speed and all of that. So, and obviously Protect and Focus Sash to like extend your survivability as long as possible. Focus Sash is always a great move to have. This thing is 4 times weak to fire, but that's what the Terra type Flying is for. Like, even if you go for like the Sunny Day and you don't use any like Rain Dance, and Hurricane obviously is going to be dead because it's 50% accurate under Sunny Day. The Terra type Flying is still a great Terra type to go for. And I mean, I guess sometimes you might even come across like gravity teams and all that, so your Hurricane's not going to be dead. But it's like I said, you gotta be very peculiar on how you kind of play this team. Like, you gotta know your matchups. Like I said, it's not beginner friendly, but it's a good team nonetheless. And yeah, there's really not much else to go over. Like, the EVs are just standard EVs, nothing too fancy here. And I'll move on to like Murkrow a little bit more. So this team already has like a lot of like special defense, you know, I guess investment without actually like investing. Like, you know, you got 118 with the 1.5 from Assault Vest. You have 110 special defense. Gardevoir is actually especially defensively tanky without any investment. Like 115, you're already like 135 with no investment. Caesar is a little bit frail on the especially defensive side, but it makes up for with defensive and all that, and it's really not as frail as one would think. Same with Klefki, that's why I went for like more defensive on here. So that's kind of why I went more on defensive with Murkrow, if you want an explanation on that. Obviously Violite doubles your defense and special defense, so really this is actually like 150 defense, and I don't feel like doing the math on that, but you know, it's still going to be over 100. And yeah, Murkrow has always been a good Pokemon. I enjoy it a lot. It's always reliable. It's very it's not as effective now that Power Creep kind of like went up with like all the Paradox Mons, but it still does its job like effectively. And that's kind of what you need. You need the job to be done like as much as possible every single time. Even like a 95% accuracy might not even be enough in some situations, because, you know, obviously people have missed air slashes when like you're about to win and it costs you the game. So that's kind of like why you want to be 100% effective in your entire strategy. And there's not much else to go over Murkrow. It's a good Pokemon. You get your Dark typing to kind of help against the Trick Room matchup. One thing to note is that so while your team is fast under Tailwind against like certain other Tailwind teams, you might actually end up losing because those Tailwind teams are like, they go all in. This team does not go all in. It can, but it's kind of like more of a middling, I guess, balanced style team. So you get like everything on this team. So you kind of want to note that, and that's why I put Gardevoir on this team, just so you have access to Trick Room to kind of like mitigate that. So this Gardevoir is really specifically built to help the Trick Room matchup as well. Mainly like Indeedee Armarouge stuff, which is still going to probably be popular like in the coming seasons and regulations and all that stuff. But obviously, like I was going over Telepathy, Covert Cloak, and I'll explain why I choose to run Covert Cloak in a second. But obviously Terra-type Dark is very useful here because you could Terra-type Dark on their Expanding Force and you get to essentially live one hit for free, which is very crucial in Trick Room matchups when you're trying to like get that Trick Room off to counteract their Trick Room. And you're gonna notice I'm saying Trick Room a lot because that's what this Pokemon does. You use it for Trick Room, but you also don't really need it in kind of like other matchups. But you also can use it in other matchups, if that makes sense. Which, I mean, it probably might not make sense, but I'll still, you know, keep on going on. So this is where an open team sheet, if you're new to VGC, you might not know this. Open team sheet, your opponent can see what your moves and all that stuff are, but they cannot see your EVs. And at first glance, looking at this Gardevoir, you know, you might say, oh man, you wouldn't even know if it's like offensive or defensive or even like support. It's a Gardevoir. People usually expect it to be like a support or a Scarf, but like when they see Trick Room, they're gonna obviously like, and you know, obviously running Covert Cloak, they're not gonna know what this Pokemon is. Like Covert Cloak is typically kind of like a defensive item, if that makes sense. But 125 special attack is almost the same as Walking Wake over here, but like Gardevoir hits hard. People underestimate how hard Gardevoir can hit sometimes, and I'll explain these EVs in a second. But like Moonblast is base 95 power single target move, and typically in Trick Room like matchups, if it's not like Indeedee Armarouge, they might lead like Hariyama if people still run that thing, or even Iron Hands. And mainly they're like fighting types of fake out. Sometimes people like to run that Pikachu ripoff that has access to Revival Blessing. I don't even know its name, Palmy or Palmot or something, but I don't know, I hardly see it. And it has fake out too. I don't know why people, you know, lead that thing in fake out when Revival Blessing's more value, but I mean, it can happen. It's Pokemon, anything can happen. You gotta always be prepared for that kind of stuff. But that's why I kind of run the Covert Cloak, to kind of like give you a better matchup against that lead. Like they won't really be able to lead that effectively, and you'll still be able to counteract their like lead strategy with that. If you don't know what this does, you basically, the main reason why you would use this just to ignore flinches and ignore you know, I guess special attack and speed drops. So sometimes this thing likes to get hit with Snarl, but Covert Cloak stops that. And obviously sometimes they'll try and fake you out if they don't read the open team sheet for whatever reason, and you know, they'll end up faking you out, and then they're like, what the heck, you know, I'm still attacking. You Moonblast their Hariyama, that thing's dead. You Moonblast their Iron Hands, that thing's most likely gonna be dead. And if it's like a really specially defensive Iron Hands, you'll 2-hit KO that thing. Like, it really it takes a lot of damage from Gardevoir. And if they go for Terra typing on Iron Hands, then I mean, I guess you have the advantage, but usually that's what Shadow Ball is for, to kind of like do some damage to it. But this also helps against like a lot of I guess psychic types that you might come across, like especially in the matchup against Trick Room. They'll be using like Armarouge and all that, and you can't really hit Armarouge that hard because it's a fire type, and you have Moonblast, so that's what Shadow Ball's for, to kind of like help with that. Although you gotta keep in mind, you're not gonna be able to hit like Farigiraf or Indeedee with Shadow Ball because they're normal types. So yeah, that's like one thing to keep in mind. So yeah, and obviously the EVs here I'll explain. So 112 speed should be enough to outspeed like Annihilate, that's like not invested in any kind of speed. and Annihilate is still a threat. I still respect that thing, like I've said in my previous videos, so I always want to be prepared against that thing because it gets annoying once it has like enough bulk up boost and all that. You don't want to play around it, so I made this just to eliminate it if I have the chance to. But with this kind of like HP, you still live the Rage Fist if you don't hit it. So yeah, it's Gardevoir's a little frail on the defensive side, but that's why you have screens to kind of help with that. Your defense should get like pretty high up there. Like I think it gets like 170 like defense with this, and you know 164 HP is like Rotom kind of like levels of bulk. So yeah, and Protect, you kind of like stall out. Sometimes you click Trick Room and you might need to stall out your own Trick Room at times, which it has I have come across that situation a few times, but that's what Protect's for, to kind of help with that. And sometimes you gotta like stall a bit, you know. And yeah, Gardevoir is a really great Pokemon. I mean, Gardevoir always has a lot of like very interesting moves, but this is kind of like how I built this one. Like I run Gardevoir, but I run like many different kinds of versions of Gardevoir, which I built specifically for certain kind of teams. If you know my playstyle, I'm a very like balanced kind of player, but like I mean I mix in a little hyper offense here and there, but I typically like going for telepathy strats and all that because they're very underrated and it's a really effective strategy sometimes, not all the time. And yeah, and then finally Scizor over here, which is the last Pokemon on the team. So the thing with Scizor, which a lot of people don't know, is that it's still very like underrated. You know, you get Technician, Bullet Punch, it's still a strong move. It hits basically about as hard as a Jet Punch from Palafin, minus, you know, the water boost if you know, if you go for that kind of like play style. But see, Scizor, I went for the Terra-type Fire just to help you kind of like get the best of both worlds. You know, under Rain you lose that ×4 fire weakness. You know, because Bug's weak to fire, Steel's weak to fire, so it multiplies itself, and that's what the Rain Dance is for, to make it at least a 2x weakness, so you might be able to even live the move. But you get Terra-type Fire and Terra Blast here to kind of like help whenever you go for like a more offensive Sunny Day kind of like playstyle with Scizor. You'll get that boosted Terra Blast, Terra Fire, Life Orb, but like coming from like 200 attack, and it's gonna hit hard. And I believe under Tailwind, it's still going to be a little slower than some, like, I guess some base 100 Pokemon, but, like, even then, like, you have Bullet Punch. That's really what you use it for. U-Turn is just for, I guess, I actually use U-Turn to pivot out from, like, Trick Room leads, because, U-Turn can one-hit KO, like, Farigiraf and Indeedee, depending on, like, the kind of investment they run, and, you know, obviously you get to switch in for free, which gives you a huge advantage, and you get to KO the Pokemon. But one thing to note is that usually when they lead Armarouge, you might even have to get forced into like a Terra-type Fire if you don't want to like switch out and lose a huge like advantage right away. So that's kind of like what that's for. And obviously Protect to kind of like if you play Scizor a lot, you'll notice that it likes to get double targeted a lot, just because people will respect Scizor. It's always going to be a threatening kind of Pokemon. So yeah, and there's really not much else to like say here. I mean, it's always been a good Pokemon. You have you have a lot of options. You have like Feint and all that stuff, but like that's kind of like how I ran this Scizor on this team specifically, just to kind of like I use it to mainly check Flutter Mane, which will threaten Walking Wake over here. It's not like bad or anything, but like they're more than likely going to bring Flutter Mane a lot of the time. So, or you know, maybe they'll see Scizor and respect Scizor and probably not bring it. It just depends. But I mean, you can do a lot of damage to like a lot of the faster Pokemon, mainly the fast Paradox Pokemon with Scizor. So yeah, that's kind of like how this team is. And obviously, if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to help you all out. You know, just comment, or if you see me in like I'm usually in the VGC room here on Pokémon Showdown. I play in like tournaments right now just to like maintain like some practice, because I'm so busy. I would love to play online tournaments and all that stuff, but that might not happen until the summer. I'm still going through school and all that. So yeah, I'm probably gonna upload like here and there just to give y'all like some content, at least, you know, the 30 something subscribers I have as of like making this video. This is just to help y'all out if y'all want some like ideas or all that stuff. But yeah, and there's really not much else to say on this team. It's like I said, not easy to use, but you get rewarded for using it effectively. You have all kinds of answers to like almost everything in the metagame at the moment, from like archetypes and all that stuff. You might struggle against like a few like teams here and there, like the ones that run like really random stuff that you're not really like prepared for. At that point, you just kind of have to like play to your best ability, because it goes both ways. They're not gonna not to play against this team because this team has some like off meta stuff, but like they're not gonna not to play against you. So it just kind of goes back and forth. Don't let that ever discourage you. It's just how Pokemon is. Like, it's just a game of it's a game of playing with the Pokemon you know, and playing, you know, to your best ability and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna have to cut this video short, and I'll go over another thing too that a lot of people are like not really noticing, but I'll just say it in this video. So people were like very disappointed with Walking Wake at first glance, because it does not look like the book, that the picture book or whatever that's in the game. Like, it's a huge like difference. But it's like a lot of people are ignoring the fact that Game Freak kind of essentially added a new Pokemon that's like completely different without any DLC, and they injected it through Terra raids. Like, it's a new Pokemon. It's not even in the Pokedex from what I hear. Like, so like technically speaking, Game Freak can actually add like any Pokemon they want without even having to, you know, I guess announce it or make it official or anything through DLC or any of that stuff. But my theory goes is that we have two DLCs, right? This Walking Wake and Iron Leaves were given whenever the game was kind of like Pokemon Day was announced, as kind of like a reward and all that stuff. And my theory goes is that we'll get Paradox versions of like Entei and Raikou on top of like the Paradox versions of like the Swords of Justice, but they'll be releasing like maybe once like every single DLC that comes out, if that makes sense. So like I guess part 1 of the DLC you'll get Paradox Entei, part 2 you'll get Paradox Raikou, and then you know, for whatever reason, the final DLC, since it's mainly based off that Dream Pokemon, you get like some kind of fusion mechanic and get to fuse all 3 of the Paradox Pokemon, and then you get like whatever was on that book, like image and all that. At least that's my theory on like how that would go, because it's a huge difference. Like, Walking Wake looks nothing from that photo, but like, why would they have that photo in the first place? There has to be a reason for stuff. But that's kind of like my theory on that, my hot take, if that makes sense. And yeah, like I said, if you like my stuff, you know, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff, because support always helps. It might motivate me to make another video soon or whatever. But I'll have to cut this video short. I would love to get some games, but I'm running short on time also, and for the sake of like the video's length and all that stuff. But yeah, it's Walking Wake, in my opinion, is always going to be a strong metagame threat. Like, it's built very like perfectly almost, if that makes sense. Like, it's built to do what you want it to do. Unlike some Pokemon I enjoy, but you know, it happens. Can't have it all. And yeah, if you like my stuff, don't forget all that like, subscribe, and everything, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.